Next question. Do you know when the streets will close, now or when?
As I said, we had expectations that that the judge would sign the order condemning the streets and other properties necessary for Phase 1 of Atlantic Yards pretty quickly. It's taken a little longer than we expected, but we expect it very soon.
Yeah, I would like to get a little more clarity on this, on timing and eminent domain and process before all of this happens. So, would you guys walk us through, I mean, I think this relates to when and with what remaining actions does this happen? And where are we a little more specifically on those actions?
Can we get a status report on the project?
But I mean, they're not just a status, I mean, I guess it's supposed to, you gave a broad status report.
No, but I think there's a mechanical issue. Let me explain the mechanics.
Thank you.
When the ESDC files the map of the petition for condemnation in the Supreme Court in Brooklyn, New York, that judge schedules a hearing. They scheduled a hearing, and it was about 2 hours long. ESDC's counsel, Berger and Webb, presented the information of the project and the purpose for the condemnation, and it also answered some questions raised by the petitioners. I may get these words mixed up, but anyway, petitioners that were filed in papers the night before. And so then the petitioners who were against the condemnation presented their case. And then the judge closed the hearing and the record. And I mean, I am not a lawyer, but what I understand the process is that the judge will write a decision or something that responds to what he heard at the hearing. And if he signs the map and the order, then that map and order get filed, just like a deed, and then title is vested from the city to ESDC, and that can happen in a day. So if the judge signs the order tomorrow, title could be vested the next day. That's how I understand it, but I'm not an eminent domain expert, and I'm not an attorney. But so that means, so that means that this could be imminent, and that's why we wanted to make sure people understood what the traffic changes could be. And the mechanics of figuring out what would happen when you close these streets were determined in part by the studies that were done in the FEIS and the other project documents and the public approvals. And then there is a list of mitigation that are required for the implementation of the project in the FEIS, and we took that list, and Sam Schwartz came up with what he thought was necessary, and some things were specifically related in the FEIS to the street closures, so they were very clear, but there was some others where it could be under the jurisdiction of DOT to decide whether or not to implement that. So what we did was we used Sam Schwartz's expertise to come up with what he thought was the best plan to make sure that the community would be least affected. And then we sat with DOT, and DOT selected the ones that they thought. And then we came up with the notice that went out in January. Then things like the Community Board Aid suggestion came, some other suggestions came, the DOT tweet, so that's why there are changes to this presentation, which we're going to make public. And so that is how we came up with all of this information.
So then I guess I'd just like to understand the set. So I understand that obviously the timing and what the judge says are indeterminate and not under your control, but and we don't know when or what that will be. But I guess, Chris, can you help me understand from the point after, if there were to be an order and a vesting, how long would the time period be between that and the street closing?
Ultimately, when that happens, ESDC has the right to close the streets it at a time. We would obviously encourage ESDC and for City Ratner, as they've been doing up to this point, to provide, you know, reasonable notice. But there's no specific, as far as I can understand, I can check on this, but I mean, there's no specific sort of guideline in something like this for what the required notice is.
If they asked you as part of that encouragement what you thought reasonable notice would be, what would you suggest in between vesting and?
I mean, I'd actually like to go back and talk to others at the DOT, because frankly, we haven't discussed this in depth.
That would be great if you could get back to us on. Thank you.
And before the decision is made, I would hope that the elected officials would be consulted. My definition of reasonable is at least a 2-week window, a 2-week period of notice to the community.